Hello everyone and welcome to Game 2 in our best of 3 series between Roller and Cubit. Cubit taking the first one toward the end of the late game. I mean, it was a very, very short late game, guys. Let's be honest. Both players hitting headquarter level 5 about the same time. Roller on the robot, Cubit as the scientist. But Cubit was the one who set himself up in a position where he could drop an Offworld, adrenaline boosted out. He got off 2 launches. Canceled that last one, kind of realizing, hey, I've got the resources, and he just cleaned up the game with an immediate majority buyout. So that was good work done by Cubit. This game might end up being a little bit different here. Really not seeing a good scientist location like we did last time. Plenty of aluminum and iron available to take a nice look at the map. Water is definitely a bit more awkward. Plenty of high tiles available, but no real good adjacency for them. So it will be interesting to see how players decide to play that out. On top of that, once again, there are carbon tiles available, but they're all low. So even with the adjacency bonuses, those are definitely going to be a bit questionable. And only 2 geothermal vents on this map. And those could become very important to seeing how this game will play out long term. Neither player, once again, seeing a spot they need instantly. Cubit is going to be the first one to find a location that he really likes. He is going to drop expansive, I believe, on top of a fair amount of iron. I wish I could kind of see what tiles got destroyed here within the first, like, 30 seconds of the found, just to have an idea. Like, I don't know. Anyway. Regardless, we can see that Cubit has moved into steel, iron, and aluminum. Very standard expansive start these days. Whereas Roller has just secured himself a couple of elemental quarries and a high aluminum mine. I'm worried about Roller already. That is not a lot of carbon to be bringing in, only 3. He's going to have to commit 3 tiles to this, I think, fairly early in the game. And even on like the next upgrade level, he kind of has the ability to go high silicon, high water, low carbon, and then be pulling in a fair number of resources. But it leaves him without necessarily any leftover cash that he can abuse. Wow, actually just choosing to go into water with his first 2 claims. It'll be interesting to see what he does with that last one. Understandable. There are several high silicon tiles available, so he's not going to be concerned about securing those. He just wants access to the good water now. And he will... Whoa, is that actually 3 water tiles from Roller? Is that what we're trying to do this game? Roller doesn't want to play a standard game against Cubit again. You can kind of tell. He's not content to just kind of sit back, try to do his own thing while harassing his opponent a bit. This is a very aggressive move, saying, I am going to take water, and I am going to do things with it, and you had better be able to respond to it. It'll be interesting to see if Roller can pull this off. That's a very aggressive strategy. Very, very aggressive. Alright. Plot auction, this time not a claim auction. Not too surprised to see people pressing pretty hard for this. It is one of the few water tiles left on the map. Not a high though, so it looks like Roller is willing to let it go for 24,000. That is not going to be a tile that Cubit would have normally claimed. We are going to see a water pump go down on it. That just does make sense to go ahead and use the tile now that you've got it. But this isn't so much the extra claim that even maybe a geotherm auction would have been. He never would have committed to this tile. Never, ever, ever would have committed to this tile unless it came up in the plot auction. So that's not really a huge benefit for 24,000 debt, but it will secure him a little bit of water at this early stage of the game, which is not going to be a bad thing, certainly.
The black market
all right.
is online.
Cubit has moved into the very standard, I guess we should mention. I'm on 2 aluminum, 2 iron, 3 steel, as expansive, just trying to press through upgrades. Very, very similar to what he did last game. Almost exactly the same, really, just as an expansive colony instead of as a scientific colony. So a little bit of lower amount of steel coming in for him. Those extra claims kind of having to be committed to iron, but as he moves through the game, he will kind of catch up and compensate, getting those extra expansive claims later and later and later. Alright, hard to say who really has a good lead at this point. Roller does have HQ level 3 available already. That's going to be beneficial for him. I feel like he has to. He's going into silicon, and he's actually going to start making glass. This makes me a bit nervous, honestly. I was really thinking that he would almost certainly need to move into food, like right here and now. He has completely destroyed water. He has all these tiles sitting around making no money whatsoever, and he wants to get maybe some pushback on that. And in fact, he does cancel out and move into food. what I would have absolutely loved to see, I don't mind claiming this high silicon, but he did have the option to get down a food triangle if he wanted to. Just buy up some aluminum, get down that food. It's a little bit risky, especially when you're against Cubit. He might catch you out on this. He's going to force a transition later, but maybe having that triangle would have been worth it. It's just hard to say for sure. Cubit is going to go ahead and move into glass furnaces himself. Once again, kind of ignoring the markets, ignoring that aspect of the game, and just saying, look, as long as I can make the stuff that gets me to higher levels, I don't care. This is simpler. This is quick. This doesn't make bad money, so I'm just going to do it, see if I can make it work. Finally, we do have some aggressive black market popping out this game. Unfortunately for Roller, it's going to do almost nothing, slamming into a goon squad almost immediately on that power surge. Just an unfortunate coin flip for Roller there. So he's going to end up doing absolutely nothing, basically, with that power surge.
10,000, 12,000.
Energy Vault auction is certainly interesting. Neither player, once again, putting up power yet this game. Is something they're going to have to watch out for, is this Energy Vault. So 20,000 for that should be a fairly reasonable price to pay. It's a chunk of debt now, but it saves debt as this power price keeps creeping up and up and up and up and up. 20,000 should be a very reasonable price to pay for that, so that you're not acquiring so much debt from power as the game goes on. Cubit's first attack was successful this game, power surging out Roller's farms. That's $120 a second. Roller is no longer receiving, and it kind of continues, leaving him in a very awkward spot with his water. Sitting there with 600 of it and absolutely nothing to do. I feel like the combination of those two moves is going to mean that Cubit ends up being the first player to HQ level 4, and once he's got that lead, Roller's going to have to do something special to rip it away from him. It'll be interesting to see if he can pull that off. All that said, Roller is not very far away from being able to upgrade. He just needs a little more cash. He would have had it so easily if the freeze hadn't come down on his farms by now. But it's very, very, very difficult to go ahead and push into that glass when you just have no money coming in whatsoever. That's why going into the glass production directly for Cubit was so safe. A freeze could have hit it, should have hit it, honestly, but even if it did, he still had this extra steel production. Steel still a valuable resource. Just Cubit may be a bit safer with the way he's played out this game so far. Very, very difficult to attack him effectively so far this game. Cubit, finally on HQ level 4, is going to go into the 2 geothermal vents available on the map. Roller will be locked out of those. However, with his silicon production, I doubt this will be too much of an issue for him. Cubit also moving into a couple of reactors and a couple of solar panels. This power price might get tanked a lot faster than Roller can do anything about it. And I'm concerned about that for Roller this game. He might have a bit of an issue. He's actually moving into glass furnaces as well, kind of matching Cubit's. So we're going to have 2 farms against 2 reactors, and then 2 glass furnaces against 2 glass furnaces. But then Cubit has all this extra power production going on, in addition to far less useless water production. So I'm concerned for Roller at this point. I don't know if he is going to be able to go ahead and pull this one on through from here, but he is committing to a large number of farms. This is his attempt to come back, try and make a lot of money right now in this particular resource that Cubit isn't in. Unfortunately, his farms are still currently undefended, and he's not even looking at doing anything about that. However, I do kind of like this idea of going after Cubit, but unfortunately, Cubit had prepared for this. So what just happened while we look at this auction? Roller purchases a mutiny, not having realized, it looks like, that Cubit had already purchased a mutiny. He attacks Roller's Cubit's geotherm, very much in the way he did last game, very, very similar to that. But unfortunately for him, Cubit had already pre-purchased a mutiny to take that back. So that was basically just money and a black market cooldown stolen away from Roller that Cubit had already prepared for. He's got another one purchased up right now. Now, if Roller is paying attention to this, he can kind of know that he doesn't need a goon squad here immediately. Unfortunately, he doesn't really spot it. He does go ahead and commit that money to a goon squad. I feel like if Roller had been watching the black market prices carefully, that wouldn't have happened. He would have extra cash on hand to be more effectively making the transition that he is doing right now. But overall, I think it'll pan out all right. Having a goon squad, obviously never a bad thing. So Still not going to hurt Roller
market
that
is
badly.
online.
Just like a small edge that he could have taken that I think he missed out on there. Cubit still sitting back on this mutiny. I think it's really going to come down to how Roller is able to abuse his scavenger advantage, and that is a nice series of coin flips for Roller. So first he gets the solid bounce here, hitting all 3 foods, and then continuing into the steal. Already not a great chance of that happening. Basically a 50-50 roll of getting all 3 of these in the first place. And then he manages to roll 1, 2, 3 more times. Not a good shot at getting this good a hit for Roller. That's kind of a big deal here this game.
The black market is
Cubit, on the other
online.
hand, he is going to slam a power surge right into Roller's probably 4th most useless tile. This aluminum mine, it hits a goon squad. That informs Cubit of the goon squad, but that is not how you want to be spending. I imagine that cost Cubit, probably about $7,000 to $8,000 this game. Always harder to tell in the 1v1 games exactly how much money a black market item costs at any given moment. So that's a nice turn of events for Roller. No adrenaline boost this game. I don't know exactly how we're going to see the late game played out. It's also interesting to note that Roller has purchased 1 claim. Cubit has ignored them entirely for the duration of this game. No interest in claims whatsoever for Cubit. Roller has moved into some wind turbines to kind of try and collect some power. He's not in a bad spot in debt. He's not in a great spot in debt. I imagine debt's going to be mostly irrelevant moving forward this game for a long time. The claim auction is coming up, though. That could switch things around just a bit. Roller may be a bit nervous to press in on this claim auction, so that is just going to be a nice claim over to Cubit for $18,000, evening up the debt a bit more. But Cubit still has a little bit less of it than Roller does. Wow, another power surge. Right onto these farms. Got another lucky hit with the farms to move into the steal, but unfortunately no more luck from there forward. It is going to get stopped once again by the goon squad. I would have loved to see something like a mutiny right on top of that. Roller doesn't really have a great place to get attacked by mutinies without geotherms himself, without a whole slew of them coming at him at once. So it could have been really interesting to see a mutiny here, followed by a power surge to guarantee the strong, strong hits coming on through. That could have been really, really cool to see. Or a power surge from here out to here, guaranteeing a freeze on all the food. That could have been really cool to see. That aside, Cubit's sitting on about enough money to put down an Offworld right now, and he does. Another great reason to try and make an effort to tear through your opponent's goon squads early with tools that maybe can't be used effectively against you. Prevents that Offworld market from being planted under it. So once again, looks like both players, though, have managed to get that market down, and Roller was ahead this time. That scavenger advantage, even with slightly weakened carbon production, having to commit 3 tiles to it, only getting 5.25 a second, he is the first one to push into the Offworld this game, and he will be shipping food. On top of that, I have to commend Roller for his patience with water. A lot of people will see, oh man, I could make, how much money could I make by just planting water? I could just make $6,000 by selling off 100 water right now. I could just have that if I wanted it. But Roller says, no, my opponent is in a lot of farms. My opponent is in a lot of reactors. I'm not going to let him make money off those. Forget that. I don't want him to have money. I want him to sit there, and I want all his tiles to be useless, and I want to force a transition out of him. I want to force him to shut them down.
Just disappointed in
and then I'll sell my water, is what I'm expecting out of Roller. So this is great. Like, if you're going to take all these water tiles and force this price to be this way, having the patience to actually follow through on the play is a very, very, very big deal. And you can see he is forcing Cubit to actually spend his black market effects just fighting for water, not even fighting the off-world battle. So that, I think, is a really, really, really huge deal this game. That is fantastic for Roller, I have to say. That's great, in my opinion. I love that. Cubit is staring down this 62% right now, and has decided to go ahead and defend himself. That's not the way Cubit likes to play. From what I've seen of Cubit, he likes to be in command of the game from start to finish, not be the one having difficulty defending himself, just grabbing enough stock so a majority buyout doesn't come down to finish him off. He should be okay here. He is going to get an off-world launch. Off-worlds are absolutely fantastic this game. I don't know if we talked about it much, but we did spot the off-world price of $6.86 for food going on. So with this launch, Cubit will be able to fully defend himself. with those 5 stocks, and we will be seeing a game moving later and later and later. So we will get to see kind of how that dance plays out between these 2 players. And I'm interested because suddenly debt comes back into the equation when you're talking about a not so massive lead of one player over another. Now Roller is going to have to be concerned about these launches once again, as Cubit kind of keeps succeeding because those tiles stay defended so effectively this whole time. That is a lot of money in Cubit's pocket to go back and attack Roller, and Roller is going to have to secure 3 of his own stock at some point in this game in order to fight back. We'll just have to see how that goes. Water price evening out a bit, as Cubit did take away a lot of water from Roller with those mutinies. Electronics, very, very valuable. Steel, not so much. Cubit just kind of sitting around burning money in his steel mills. Does not have the iron to support that, so he is transitioning back into that right now. Roller, on the other hand, still kind of committed to these water-based resources. Knows that he has a lot of water saved up. That it hasn't really been hurting his economy nearly as bad as it might appear to just stick in these resources. That's just the hill he's chosen to stand and die on, apparently. We're going to have to see how that goes for him. Cubit has made the transition into electronics, and he has actually been, it looks like, the first one to commit to that second off-world market. Roller never really deciding to commit those resources. Perhaps is a bit concerned about the fact that he has not fully defended himself yet, and so he is choosing to commit money into stock first. Make sure he's got that defense, and then I expect we will see an off-world out of Roller as well. Spies are available this game, and I would have loved to see some spies being utilized. Keep an eye on your opponent's goon squads, just to know what's going on. Also, both players choosing not to attempt any use of the hologram this game. They don't want to try and fool their opponent. They're both kind of respecting each other, saying, you're going to see if I try and do this, it's not even worth the $3,000. Now, I don't know if I agree with that for this off-world market construction. It is possible in the late game to kind of sneak that second one in sometimes in a bit of an odd location that your opponent isn't expecting, and so I might have liked to see a hologram down here just to kind of try, just make that small little bit of effort, but regardless, it's not necessarily the wrong decision, just a slightly different one out of Cubit, choosing not to even make the effort. Alright, we can look at the rest of the black market very quickly. Cubit's sitting on a lot of cash wanting to go after Roller right now. Roller's got to secure that last little bit. Come on, Roller, you can do it. He's got it secured. That's going to do it. 6 over to Roller, in fact. So a slight stock count advantage for him, even if his stock price is a little bit lower. Now let's quickly glance at the rest of the off-world prices that are available. Nothing looking too hot yet. Nothing else even hitting $400. Steel up at 371. Always kind of worth noting when steel is a bit high. That can create an awkward late game situation. But the only thing actually above $400 besides food is electronics. So I imagine we are mostly going to see a ton of food shipments coming out of these players. Second off-world has dropped for Roller. There is a spy down. I'm not sure for which player. Okay, Cubit has a spy positioned on his opponent's off-world market. Did check to make sure that goon squad was there. Always a nice thing to see. Roller has not gotten aggressive against Cubit's undefended market. Being able to utilize something like a power surge against that would be kind of a big deal, but you can see the composition of the black market this game has seriously hurt Roller's efforts, I think. If EMPs had been available, if Dynamite had been available, it would be far easier to assault these off-world markets effectively, driving that goon squad price higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. But that's just simply not the case this game. He's kind of stuck with power surges and mutinies, both of which have gotten very expensive and risky to use, and I think that's damaged him this game in kind of a very unfortunate way. You can see Cubit sitting on all kinds of cash right now, just saving up a lot of food. He purchased just a lot of food, driving up that price, perhaps damaging his opponent's off-world launches is going to be part of the goal of this, kind of punishing him for having so many electronics factories up, not so much food, and is in fact going to mutiny away a farm, denying all kinds of adjacency bonuses to Roller. And I feel like we're looking at a situation where Cubit despite needing to defend himself early, has potentially pushed into a spot where he is very, very close to finishing off Roller, only needs $382,000 to pull it off, is currently sitting on almost that amount. I think about $30,000 or $40,000 short. Roller staring at the 90%, 100% off that launch. Is Cubit going to spot that he's got it? He does. Red button, and that's going to be game number 2 and the series. On over to Cubit. All right, guys. That was an interesting one. That was well fought by Roller. Like, Cubit won. And that's kind of what you expect going into it, right? No offense to Roller. Cubit's just an insanely good 1v1 player. He loves it. That's kind of where he works best, is in this 1v1 environment. But Roller, I mean, he had a shot that game. That was not a walkover victory. That was not simple and straightforward. That was definitely more of an effort put into that one by Cubit. Definitely worth paying attention to. All right. Well, I'm not sure if we need to talk about anything special that game. We never went too in-depth into the black market. You can see Roller spent a couple of purchases on claims. I think that's a good idea for a scavenger most of the time. Cubit didn't commit any, but he was expansive. He was spending a lot of time on goon squads, a lot of time on mutinies to some degree, and then just a couple of power surges. I think Cubit, despite not purchasing any claims, I don't think he needed them this game, so I kind of like that. Roller with 14 black market purchases. And I do think, I wonder what would have happened if Roller wasn't scavenger this game. I wonder how that would have played out. Might have had a little more trouble getting that initial Offworld market online. Maybe just staying barely ahead of Cubit there. But the black market was just so weak this game for a scavenger. You only really had 2 tools to use. And that's not really a spot you want to be in as scavenger. So that combined with the carbon makes me really wonder what would have happened if Roller had found it just a little differently, or if the black market had just kind of shifted a little bit into a more usable direction. Maybe if we had seen a couple storms when Cubit mutinied away water, that could have been interesting. I just don't know. A very awkward black market to try and make work for a scavenger that game. Hard to say. Hard to say. Still, well fought. There's no tech going on. There was just the one energy vault patent picked up in an auction. None of that was particularly complicated. Sabotage targeting, we know what happened there. It was a fairly straightforward game, once again, just kind of pushing into that very, very latest stage that a 1v1 should generally go, honestly. Neither player getting tricky, neither player getting fancy, trying to get a patent office down, trying to get a lab down, or a hacker array, not even a pleasure dome. Just very straightforward. Offworlds are good. I want offworlds, and I'm going to try and end the game playing around those. Still, though, a good series. Nice to see someone put up a solid fight against Cubit. Kind of gives hope for the rest of the tournament that we'll see more and more of that as it goes on. But that is going to go ahead and wrap it up here. 2-0 on over to Cubit.